let's talk about why Modern sucks. As a Legacy player, of course I'm inclined to believe that Legacy is the best format, and anything that's like an imitation of Legacy, like, say, Modern, is pretty bad. But I have a lot of reasons. In Legacy, you play one of three types of decks. You play a combo deck, like Infect, like, okay, Glistener turn 1, or Blighted Agent turn 2, or Inkmoth Nexus, and then Giant Growth, Giant Growth, Giant Growth, you're dead! Play a combo deck like that. Other options include Storm, where you're trying to cast 20 spells in a turn, and, well, okay, not 10. Not 20. You're just trying to cast 10 spells in a turn and then cast Grape Shot twice to kill your opponent. So, Storm, Eggs, which is really, it took me a very long time to figure out how Eggs worked, especially after seeing a deck list. I had no idea. Like, you have one Pyrite Spell Bomb, and somehow you, on like a huge turn, you activate it 20 times and kill your opponent. That's basically what Eggs is. What other crappy combo decks? Oh, there's Splinter Twin, which you all know by now that I just hate because it's a 2-card combo. Or you play like Malira Pod, which unfortunately doesn't do anything without the Birthing Pod. Yeah, so okay. You play a crappy combo deck, or you play a crappy aggro deck. The reason why aggro decks in Modern are crappy is because, well, they're only, like, okay, there's like a list of 20 cards you can have in an aggro deck in Modern that are good. Cards like Loam Lion, Curd Ape, Steplynx, Geist of Saint Traft, Delver of Secrets, Tarmogoyf, the big one. Pardon the pun. Tarmogoyf's basically just a huge creature for 2 mana. It's a huge green creature for 2 mana. That's all you need to know about it. So there's like a list of 20 cards, and you pick 4 colors and you use the cards in those colors or something. Or you pick 3 colors and use the cards in those colors. There's no variation to aggro decks in Modern. It's just what combination of colors you want to use. And there's no tribal synergies that are worth playing in Modern. Okay, so play crappy combo deck, or you play a crappy aggro deck, or you play Jund. And Jund is basically the most, like, some of the best cards, like, the most value cards. Value cards are basically cards that will help you win a long game. Examples include, like, Kitchen Finks, which is it's basically a 3-mana creature that gains life when it comes into play and it's hard to get rid of. You play Bloodbraid Elf, which I talked about earlier. It's the 4-mana Cascade, so it's basically 2 spells in 1. You play Tarmogoyf just because it's huge, and you play like Thoughtseize just to disrupt your opponent. As far as the 3 pillars of Magic go, Jund is kind of the control, and there's the combo side and there's the aggro side. But it's not terribly interesting. So why isn't it interesting? Well, first of all, some of the coolest cards are banned. Jace the Mind Sculptor, like, Jace is a huge mistake. It's way more powerful than it should be. But it's banned in Modern, which helps make it, like, an uninteresting format. Without Jace, blue decks cannot face Jund. Blue decks will lose every long game against Jund ever, because Jund is just better at doing what blue decks are supposed to do than the blue decks are. What else is banned? Green Sun Zenith. Green Sun Zenith is another great control card. It's my utility spell in Maverick, which is the deck that I like playing in Legacy the most. Green Sun Zenith is green X, cost green X. Search your library for a creature card, a green creature card, with convert mana cost X and put into play. That's banned, so you can't run these toolbox green decks that are made to adapt to the situation and rely on Green Sun Zenith to get the right creature at the right time. What else? Oh, like, these questionable, like, there's this thing called New World Order. Well, I don't know if it's actually New World Order, but whatever. When they started making the modern frame, they stopped printing a certain type of card, like the type of card that can be really abusable, such as Goblin Recruiter. So Goblin Recruiter is a 4-mana goblin. It's a 2/2 haste, so 4-mana 2/2 haste, not a big deal. But when it comes into play, reveal the top 4 cards of your library and put all goblins into your hand. All goblins revealed this way into your hand. So it's really cool. It gives you an incentive to play a deck with a lot of goblins. And if you do, it can be a 2/2 haste with a draw 2 attached. You draw 2 cards when it comes into play, essentially. So that's really, like, that gives you a reason to play goblins. In Modern, there aren't these incentives. There's no reason to play a Goblin deck or a Merfolk deck. Well, okay, there is a Merfolk deck in Goblin, but in Modern, but it's awful. Or Elves. There's no, like, there's nothing you can abuse. There's nothing cool that you can do. There's nothing, like, there's no catch-all counterspell. There's no Force of Will. Force of Will, for those of you who don't know, it's counterspell, but instead of costing mana, it costs a blue spell from your hand. You have to exile a blue spell in order to cast Force of Will. Like, that helps stop the combo decks in Legacy from being too rampant. Like, there's nothing like that in Modern. Okay, there's Disrupting Shoal. That's awful. It doesn't count. So, with combo decks unchecked, except with the ban list, like, they ban cards that make combo too good. But without a way to interact with the combo decks become this uninteractive group of decks that are just no fun to play against. Either you have the hate, they're like Graveyard Hate will shut down certain combo decks cold turkey, or like Thalia will shut down the Storm decks. There's not too much that they can do about it. So either you have the hate for the combo deck, or you don't. And each combo deck requires a different type of hate. So, without a catch-all, the combo decks just run rampant. They're glass cannons. They either win or they do nothing. And without the tribal synergies, well, I don't know if it's just tribal synergies. I don't know. They banned Wildland Cattle. Like, Wildland Cattle is basically a 1-mana 3/3, but you have to be playing white, red, green. Those colors, specifically. And I mean, if you're playing a white, red, green deck, it's cool to have a 1-mana 3/3. Like, you're not countering spells in that deck. You're not forcing your opponent to discard. It puts limitations on the deck construction of what you're going to do. So I like Wildland Cattle. Like, it makes a specific deck. Like, there's a Wildland Cattle deck that plays, you know, these 3 colors in order to play Wildland Cattle. Yeah. So that's why aggro decks suck. Also, there's no Wasteland. That's another thing that's good against combo. I guess the biggest issue is that there just really isn't anything too good against. There isn't too much of an incentive to play a control deck in Modern unless it's called Jund. Blue decks are supposed to be good at winning long games. They're supposed to have the tools to make the game go long and then win a game from you know, if given enough time, by drawing cards or whatnot, or playing cards that, you know, draw a card when you play them, so that basically you grind your opponent out of resources. But there really isn't that in Modern. You can play Divination, draw 2 cards for 3 mana, but for 3 mana you better be playing a 6 mana attacker named Geist of Saint Traft, by the way, who, by the way, is also hexproof. Another story for another day. But there's just no reason to play card advantage cards. Also, no Brainstorm really hurts, because Brainstorm's a good way to generate card advantage in the late game in Legacy. Another story for another day, unfortunately. And Ancestral Visions is banned, and Jace is banned. Those are probably actually the 2 biggest things stopping Modern from being, like, having a legitimate blue control deck. Ancestral Visions is suspend 4, I believe. Blue, so you can play it on turn 1. It costs blue, suspend 4, when you can't cast it otherwise, but draw 3 cards when it resolves. And Jace is just a planeswalker that generates infinite card advantage forever. But these cards don't exist in Modern. So if you want to play a control deck, you want to play Jund. Because Jund has these cards that are powerful right now, like Lightning, Bloodbraid Elf, whatever. Wins through card advantage, and yeah, that's really it. There's no reason not to play Jund if you want to play long game. Jund has the tools to survive early, and just powerful cards to win the long game. I guess without Jace, that just doesn't really exist in Modern. I mean, as much as I think Jace is way too powerful and way too good, I think he would really help Modern become... It would strengthen the control pillar in our 3 pillars of Magic, and make Modern a more interesting format. Also, the fact that there's no Forcible. Like, the fact that there's no catch-all for combos... Like, combos are just way too good. Another way to fight combo in Legacy is the fact that you have access to Wasteland, which is... It's a land that produces colorless mana, but you can also tap and sacrifice it to destroy target non-basic land. Basically, most combo decks require a certain number of lands in play in order to do their thing. Wasteland helps stop that for a turn, while you still have resources. Presumably, you can do something without the Wasteland land. That's not making any sense. Say you have 2 mana. Your opponent just got to 3 mana. You're on 2 mana. And you play your land for the turn. It's Wasteland. You Wasteland your opponent. Your opponent's back to 2 mana. Presumably, you can do something with the 2 mana. Your opponent can't do with the 3 mana they're going to have next turn. Like, they need the 4 mana first, say, Splinter Twin. Yeah. Modern sucks. It's just not fun. Oh, another problem with Modern is that the creature size is so important. In Legacy, you have all sorts of like utility creatures that are really important, such as Knight of the Reliquary. That's part of... Knight of the Reliquary is basically the best land tutor ever. Part of that is because the lands in Modern suck. They used to make lands so much more powerful than they used to be. Wait, they used to make lands much more powerful than they make them now. But yeah, without those powerful lands, like, the utility of a Knight of the Reliquary just doesn't do much. Also, they, like, no Scavenging Ooze. That's a really good graveyard hate card. Also, it's good anti-aggro, but there just isn't Scavenging Ooze in Modern. There aren't as powerful utility creatures in Modern as in Legacy, and I feel like the utility creatures make the format interesting. They keep on pushing like the power and toughness of the newer creatures, but not necessarily the abilities that the creatures have, and that makes that basically makes Modern a Tarmogoyf fest. Anyway, I feel like I've rambled on the subject long enough. Maybe I should do a section on Legacy, because I end up talking about it a lot. Okay, thanks for tuning in.